I'm just curious, what is the process? I mean, if indeed this property was contravening certain rules or certain provisions, setting up, say, Kaduna Ages or even the Kaduna Urban Development, agency, I'm sure that there must be some rules, a timeline within which, if you're in breach of certain of its provisions, you'll be given time to rectify your stance. Otherwise, of course, you could have your property either sealed off or demolished in an extreme case.
Thank you very much.
Now, you say, I mean, from what you understand, the allegation is that they have not paid ground rent since 2010.
Correct.
When were they served a notice? And when the property was put to another use, were they also served another notice?
Yeah, all that, the due diligence were observed. And this is an agency that works professionally. The agency is well-renowned. Kaduna Geographic Information Service also is well-renowned. And with the recent development and investment that is going on, they observe all due diligence before steps are taken. They were served notice and at the house of the former owner of this land. The notice was served, and also the company.
When? We got that statement from the Kaduna, I think it's from the Kaduna state government now, but the question was, when were they served?
Well, I'm sure the Geographic Information, Kaduna Geographic Information Service served and observed due diligence.
It doesn't say when.
Yes.
It is interesting that, I'm reading the statement. This is from Ibrahim Husseini, who is the Director General of CADGIS. He talked about how the land has been, the land, they issued a revocation notice of statutory right of occupancy, that covers the area. The appropriate notice of revocation was delivered at 28 Inuwa Wada Road, the registered address of the company that held the titles of the property. The notice was also delivered to the building in question and sent by post to the registered address of the previous title holder. The interesting thing is that all of this information leaves out the date, because a lot of people believe that if this statement had put out the date, the chances are very high that CADGIS would have implicated itself.
Well, what we have done as far as government is to demand from CADGIS if all due diligence was observed towards this. And they affirmed to us that due diligence was indeed observed.
By due diligence,
yes.
I'm sure that a time frame is also a part of it.
They must have observed that. Yes.
So do you have that information as to what time frame does it stipulate normally? If your house is to be demolished, if you're going to be given a notice, what time frame, would you be given? I'm
sure they keep record of when, because I'm not yet a property owner, so I'm not conversant with the rules.
You're not, but you are a part of the government. You must at least have an idea that if you're served a notice, maybe you'll be given a week to rectify, a month, thereabout.
That briefing was actually given, and it satisfied us in government.
But you cannot tell us when. Well,
they will be able to tell you.
Why was this demolition taking place at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Well, governance is a 24-hour job, and issues of governance problems arising can be solved at any time. We don't sleep, and that is why we are in government. We have to satisfy the needs and the cries of the people. So it does not matter what time it was done.
But whose needs are being satisfied here if you're going into a residential area and you're knocking down a house at 4 o'clock in the morning?
The residents of that area are happy with what government have done, and they have personally been in touch with the agency that undertook that to express their happiness. And the way the use of the land going forward is something that will be beneficial to all. The place needs a park, and that's exactly what we are doing. And this development is across the state. We are going to be creating parks across the state to ensure that what is best for the citizenry is observed.
But certainly those parks aren't all going to be emanating from the properties of political opponents.
Not likely. There are areas involved.
It is interesting. I am still trying to wrap my head around the fact that, a property was in breach of a payment of ground rules since 2010. Yeah. You didn't take it up with them when you came into office in 2015. You didn't take it up in 2016. You didn't take it up in 2017. Interestingly, this property only becomes obviously in breach when it turns its, when the property becomes the Secretariat of a faction of the APC in Kaduna State. And within a week or two, this property is pulled down in the name that, you're in breach of paying ground rules, which you've owed since 2010. And now, you've converted your property to another use. It doesn't seem that they've been given any room for contestation. And in the middle of the night, you say the residents are happy, but I wonder what residents will be happy if their sleep is disrupted at 4 a.m. because they're pulling down property because government is 24 hours. Are you really saying that this is not a political witch hunt?
What I'm telling you is there is no witch hunt. What we are doing is something that have started long ago, and it is in line with the mandate of the agency. And talking about other parks being erected, this is going to be seen, and the person that is involved in all this, perceived to be involved in all this, is the person of the governor, which the agency in most cases is what is independent to some extent, and whatever they have done as an agency.
Commissioner, Nigerians who are watching would be more likely to believe that if this was the first instance. But we know that there was the current National Vice Chairman Northwest, former Minister Abdul Kadir. His house in Kaduna was also pulled down when he became politically at odds with the governor. Now, what do you have to say about that?
Well, first instance or not, truth is, if things must be put right, there has to be. And it doesn't matter whose house is God in this instance. We have done demolitions across the state. This is not the first one. And if these two people are the ones involved, so be it, because we have a job to do. And this job is governance. And this governance does not segregate between the very high and the very low. So just like I mentioned to you, issues of demolitions took place in Zaria where this senator represents, but it was a non-issue to him, and it was also a non-issue to the larger body that is now talking about this, because probably the people involved are so small that their issues should not be put before the national limelight.
Commissioner, when APC was coming into power, one of the main talking points in 2015 was that this was going to be the end of high-handedness, the end of impunity. And I want to ask you, Governor Nasir El-Rufai headed the APC restructuring committee, in which his committee came up with the recommendation that there should be state police created. Now, in view of recent developments, these developments we're talking about, when you talk about the demolition of properties owned by political opponents, if such administrators are given power over a state police force, is this not a troublesome indicator as to what might happen if an armed force is under the hands of a political figure who's willing to use instrumentalities of power to make political points?
I'm sorry, Ajuri, you can only talk of impunity if the governor had acted or the agency had acted outside the law. But I have mentioned in my opening statement that all that they have done was within their purview. The governor will have been the first to raise alarm and also stop them from doing if they were acting outside the law.
But you have
I can confirm to you that
you did not establish the timelines. We asked you about
that. You have not been able to tell us what, but you have not been able